The universe had forgotten the specific, cold terror of a predator that had evolved to hunt its own kind. It was a lesson humanity was grimly prepared to reteach. Grand Admiral Kalen Reed stood on the command deck of the TCS Vanguard, his form a rigid silhouette against the holographic starfield. Before him, the Cygnus Prime system was dying. The planet, a swirl of sapphire and emerald, was being systematically scorched by the orbital fleet of the Krell Imperium. Their ships, biomechanical monstrosities that looked like cancerous bone spurs adrift in the void, fired lances of viscous, green energy, boiling away oceans and turning continents to glass. "Signal from the Ashen Concordat, Admiral," his communications officer, Lieutenant Jarrah, said. Her voice was brittle, stripped of all emotion, a professional necessity. On screen, a section of the starfield shimmered and was replaced by a circular chamber. In it, dozens of alien species, gaseous beings in containment suits, crystalline entities vibrating with light, stoic, four-armed sentinels, deliberated. A verbose, slug-like creature, the emissary of Xylos, was droning on. "Must therefore condemn the Krell incursion, but cannot, in the interest of galactic stability, sanction a military response without a unanimous quorum, which, as the esteemed representative from Paul Secunda has noted, is currently unachievable." Reed watched, his face carved from granite. Beside him, Dr. Aris Thorne, the fleet's civilian xenoanthropologist, made a sound of disgust. "They're voting," Thorne whispered, his knuckles white on the railing. "They're voting while a species is being rendered extinct." "They are following their laws, Doctor," Reed said, his voice a low baritone rumble. "They're words, Kalen, they're just words. They are all they believe they have." Reed's gaze drifted from the screen to a small, dark console in the corner. Seated there, wrapped in a thermal blanket, was Alara. She was the last of her kind. A Cygnian, avian-like, with feathers the color of a dying nebula and large, obsidian eyes that were currently tracking the Krell fire patterns on her homeworld. She had been on a cultural exchange mission when the Krell arrived, the sole survivor of her diplomatic vessel, rescued by the Vanguard, which had been observing the system from the Uit cloud for 6 months. She had stopped weeping 2 days ago. The silence was worse. "Krell Fleet main formation is beginning a concentrated saturation burn on the Lilian archipelago," the tactical officer reported, his tone clipped. "Life sign readings dropping from 7 billion to 6. Thorne turned away, pressing his hand to his mouth. Alara spoke, her voice like broken glass. "The cradle spires, that is where the young were taught to sing." Reed's jaw clenched. The Vanguard and the 150 ships of the Terran Mandate's Third Fleet had sat in the dark for 180 days, weapons hot, engines at a whisper waiting. Humanity was new. The Concordat had admitted them on probation, treating them like ambitious, dangerous children. "You may observe, Terrans, but you may not touch. You must learn our ways." And so Reed had observed. He had watched the Krell, a species the Concordat dismissed as regional marauders, systematically wall off the Cygnus system. He had watched them ignore Concordat hails. He had watched them begin their harvest. The Krell didn't just conquer, they consumed. They stripped worlds of life, culture, and biomass and moved on. The emissary of Xylos was still talking. "A strongly worded resolution is being drafted." "Mute him," Reed ordered. The sound cut off, leaving only the quiet, efficient hum of the Vanguard's bridge. The ship was alive under his feet, a leviathan holding its breath. His crew was a coiled spring, every man and woman trained to an impossible standard, their minds linked through neural interfaces to the ship's logic core. They were the product of a species that had nearly annihilated itself, a species that had learned to channel its primal aggression into a terrifying, cold precision. A private data stream flashed on Reed's retinal implant. It was the vote. The Ashen Concordat had voted against intervention. The motion failed. Cygnus Prime was now, by galactic law, lost. A tragic but acceptable cost of stability. A timer counting down for 6 months reached 0 on Reed's command console. A single, sealed data packet unlocked itself, his orders from High Command. He read the 2 words, Protocol Apex. Reed straightened his uniform jacket. He felt the weight of every human soul on his shoulders, the burden of a species that had finally, and perhaps tragically, earned its place. "Dr. Thorne," Reed said, his voice cutting through the silence. Thorne turned, his face a mask of despair. "They're not coming, no one is coming." "We are," Reed said. He looked at Thorne, his eyes black and deep. You are the fleet's conscience, Doctor. You have spent this entire voyage reminding me of the moral cost of action. I want you to stand right here. I want you to record this. I want you to remember the moral cost of inaction." Reed turned to his command chair, the leather groaning as he sat. He looked at his tactical officer. "Officer." "Admiral," the young man's voice trembled, not with fear but with anticipation. "Does the Krell Imperium have a registered Concordat species designation?" "Negative, sir. They have refused all Concordat contact. They are under Statute 411 designated as a non-sentient, hostile xenophage." Reed's fingers moved across his console. The Vanguard's main reactor began to thrum, a vibration that felt like a rising growl. On the main view screen, the image of the Concordat vanished, replaced by the tactical grid. The 151 ships of the Terran Third Fleet, previously hidden by metamaterials and void cloaks, blinked into existence on the plot. "Calm," Reed said. "Fleet-wide channel, no encryption, let them listen." Jarrah's fingers flew. "Channel is open, Admiral." Reed's voice filled the bridges of every ship in his fleet. "This is Grand Admiral Kalen Reed, TCS Vanguard. The Ashen Concordat has failed to act. The Terran Mandate will not. We are the shield for those who cannot shelter themselves. We are the spear for those who cannot fight. We are, as of this moment, the only law that matters in this system." He took a breath. "Protocol, Apex is engaged. We are not here to negotiate. We are not here to posture. We are not here to warn. We are here to end this." He looked at Alara, who was staring at him, her black eyes wide with a terrible, dawning hope. "Helm," Reed commanded. "Bring this fleet online. Move us between the Krell and their prey. Tactical, target every Krell ship in this system, from the flagship to the smallest drone. Weapons, I want a full solution lock. Wait for my mark." "Sir," the helm officer called out. "Void slip drives are spooled. We can be in position in, sir. It's an impossible jump. We'll materialize inside their shields, inside their formation." "That is the point, Lieutenant," Reed said, his voice dropping to a deadly calm. "They're expecting a battle. We are here to deliver an execution." He leaned forward. "Engage." The Third Fleet did not roar into hyperspace. It did not tear a hole in reality. It simply slipped. One moment, the space between the Krell and Cygnus Prime was empty. The next, 151 ships of polished, gunmetal gray composite and variable state armor were there, shimmering into existence like daggers drawn in the dark. For a full 3 seconds, nothing happened. The Krell, arrogant in their power, didn't even register the new contacts as a threat. On the bridge of the Vanguard, the tactical display bloomed red. "We have lock. All ships reporting 100% solution." Reed looked at the burning world, at the last sanctuary of the Cygnians. He looked at Alara. "Mark," he said. And the heavens caught fire. Overlord Vorlag, commander of the Krell's fourth cleansing swarm, did not understand the concept of interruption. He registered the new contacts on his biomechanical throne console as a sensor ghost, a momentary lapse in the World Eater's perception. He was busy, his 6 multi-jointed arms orchestrating the glorious symphony of planetary purification. The primitives on the blue world below were proving resilient. Their crystal cities were structurally sound, requiring a frustrating Amontov-focused energy. Then the sensor ghost became 151 solid, physical insults. They were small, pathetically so, symmetrical, sterile, metallic, not grown but built. They were an affront to the Krell's organic, perfected design. They appeared between his swarm and the planet, a position of such tactical stupidity that Vorlag felt a rare flicker of amusement. They had no bioshields up. Their energy signatures were quiet. "A new species," his subminder hissed, its chitinous plates rattling. "They are not on the Concordat's recognition lists." "Primitives," Vorlag rasped, the sound like boulders grinding together. "Vermin, they have come to watch their new neighbors die, perhaps, or to offer themselves to the swarm. It matters not." He gestured with a lower arm. "Wipe them from the void, use the forward plasma casters, do not waste the spore." On the World Eater's pockmarked, asteroid-like hull, a dozen massive, fleshy casters dilated. They spat gobs of semi-sentient, superheated plasma, creatures in their own right, bred to seek out energy signatures and burn. The green, viscous energy slammed into the human fleet. On the Vanguard's bridge, alarms didn't shriek. The crew was too disciplined. "Energy impact detected," the defense officer called out. "Hull is responding." Dr. Thorne gripped the rail, watching the main view screen as a glob of Krell plasma, the size of a stadium, impacted the Vanguard. He braced for the shudder, for the scream of metal. Neither came. The hull of the Vanguard was not a solid. It was variable state matter, a semi-liquid intelligent composite held in place by magnetic containment fields. When the plasma hit, the hull rippled. It bent. It absorbed the kinetic and thermal energy, fluoresced a brilliant, shimmering silver, and then resolidified, completely unharmed. The plasma had splashed against it like water on a hot stone. Across the fleet, the same scene played out. The Krell's opening salvo, capable of crippling a Concordat cruiser, had been neutralized by hull physics. Well, Dr. Thorne breathed, that's new. Overlord Vorlag stared. His console showed the impacts. His console showed 0 damage. The plasma casters had missed. No, they had hit. The primitives had absorbed it. Fire again, he roared. All ships full volley. No, Admiral, Jera asked, her hand hovering over the comms. Not yet, Reed said. He watched the tactical plot. The Krell fleet was an ugly, disorganized cloud. His fleet was a scalpel, perfectly aligned. Let them commit. Let them show us all their cards. A second, more massive volley of Krell plasma and bioacid missiles struck the human fleet. Again, the VSM hulls rippled, dispersed, and reformed. The human ships held their position, silent, unmoving like wraiths. Vorlag felt the first unfamiliar touch of cold, not fear, confusion. What is their weaponry? Why don't they fire? They are accepting our judgment, Overlord, the subminder offered. No, this is a tactic. Admiral, the tactical officer on the Vanguard said, his voice dangerously calm. The Krell flagship World Eater is opening its main weapon port. It's charging. Something massive. A biological agent. The spore, Ilara whispered, her hands flying across her console. It's what they did to my colony on Delta. It doesn't just kill. It converts. It rewrites the air, the water, the soil. It makes the world Krell. Reed's eyes narrowed. They won't get the chance. He looked at his weapons officer. Lieutenant Rhea, your station, you have the fleet's primary targets. I want the World Eater's main weapon port gone. I want its engine nodes gone. I want its plasma casters gone, but I want the ship intact for now. Understood. Sir, Rhea asked, confused. Intact. This is not a war, Lieutenant. This is surgery. We remove the cancer, but we must study the patient. All other ships, priority targets are Krell weapons and engines. Disable. Do not destroy. Rhea's brow furrowed, but she nodded. Aye, sir. Main weapon, the Graviton Lance, is ready. Fire, Reed said. The Vanguard did not have cannons. It did not have laser beams. Deep within its core, a containment field held a microscopic, manufactured singularity. When Reed gave the order, the field opened a pinprick aperture. The ship didn't fire a projectile. It fired a concept. A hair-thin, invisible beam of focused, intense gravitational distortion shot from the Vanguard's prow at the speed of light. It was not a destructive beam. It was a compressive one. The beam touched the Krell World Eater's primary plasma caster, the one charging the spore. Overlord Vorlag saw a flicker on his console. Then, the entire forward section of his ship simply vanished. It didn't explode. It didn't melt. The Graviton Lance had hit the 800-meter-wide organic cannon and for a single microsecond applied the gravitational force of a white dwarf. The cannon, the surrounding armor, the thousands of Krell drones tending it, were instantly, silently crushed into a single, glittering speck of superdense matter no larger than a grain of sand. This speck, its gravitational potential now spent, simply winked out of existence. Silence on the Vanguard bridge. Target destroyed, the tactical officer stammered. Target removed, Rhea corrected, her eyes wide. Holy. Vorlag screamed. It was a sound of physical pain. A third of his flagship was gone, not damaged, gone. What weapon is this? What sorcery? Before he could react, the rest of the human fleet responded. They were called Wraith-class frigates, and they moved with a speed that defied Krell physics. They swarmed, but they didn't fire lasers. They launched resonance torpedoes. These were not explosive charges. They were in essence tuning forks, each one fitted with a small phase drive. The Krell bioships were heavily armored, designed to repel kinetic and energy attacks. The resonance torpedoes didn't care. They approached the Krell hulls, phased through the organic armor like ghosts, and reappeared inside the ships, next to their biological power cores. Then they turned on. Each torpedo was tuned to the specific resonant frequency of the Krell's energy generation organs. They began to vibrate, emitting a low, powerful hum. On a dozen Krell cruisers, the internal power cores began to shake. They shook harder. The Krell crews screeched, their bodies vibrating. Within seconds, the power cores, designed to pulse at a specific rhythm, were forced into a cascading resonance failure. They quite literally tore themselves apart. No explosions, no fire, just a sudden catastrophic internal disintegration. One by one, the Krell ships died. Their lights went out, their engines went silent, they stopped moving, they just drifted, dead. In the span of 90 seconds, the entire Krell Fourth Swarm, save for the crippled World Eater, had been neutralized without a single large-scale detonation. It was the cleanest, most terrifying, and most silent act of naval warfare the galaxy had ever witnessed. Dr. Thorne stared at the tactical map, which was now filled with grayed-out, disabled icons. "My God, Kalen," he whispered, "you didn't just beat them, you disassembled them." Reed's face was unreadable. "The Krell are a plague, Aris. You don't fight a plague, you cure it. This is the cure." On the World Eater, Overlord Vorlag was trembling. His subminders were dead, their internal organs vibrated to paste. His ship was dark, running on emergency biological power. The primitive metal ships had not hailed him. They had not threatened him. They had simply stopped him. As if he were a disobedient child, the insult was deeper than any wound. But Vorlag was Krell. He was a survivor. His ship was crippled, his swarm was dead, but he had one weapon left, the true Krell weapon. "Admiral," Jera's voice was sharp. "Massive launch detection from the World Eater. It's not a weapon, it's a swarm, bio-drones, thousands of them." On the screen, a cloud of small, fast-moving objects erupted from the dying flagship. They looked like metallic insects. "The Shredders," Alara gasped. They eat ships." The cloud of drones ignored the human fleet. They ignored the Vanguard. They dove, accelerating with impossible speed, straight for the blue-green world they had been denied. "They're going for the planet," the tactical officer yelled. "They're a planetary surface scourge. They'll land and consume everything." Reed's face was thunder. He had been precise. He had been clean. And the Krell in its dying breath had spat in his eye. "Tactical," Reed snapped. "Send Phase 2. "Sir." "Sergeant Petrova and her teams, they wanted a ground war, authorize it." He turned to his comms. "All ships form a Stelnet. Intercept those drones, shoot. To kill this time," he said, his voice dropping to absolute zero, "no survivors." The Stelnet was a Terran tactic born from desperation, perfected by logic. The 150 ships of the Third Fleet, no longer needing to be surgical, fanned out in a high-orbit semicircle. Their hulls, no longer liquid, flashed as they vented excess energy. Their quiet engines roared to life, revealing their true nature. They were not just fast, they were preternaturally agile. "Wraith frigates form echelon blade," Reed's voice echoed across the fleet. "Engage point defense. Ajax, Defiant, full spread on your flak-shear canisters. I want a wall of steel between those things and the ground." The Krell Shredders were fast, but they were dumb. They were biological imperatives driven by a single command: consume. The human fleet was a thinking, reacting, cooperative organism. The Ajax and Defiant, heavy cruisers, fired their flak-shear canisters. These were not explosives. They were pods that, upon detonation, released millions of hypervelocity, razor-sharp tungsten filaments, creating a temporary, kilometers-wide hailstorm in the path of the drone swarm. The front rank of the Shredders hit the filament cloud. They didn't explode, they were shredded. Chitinous armor, biological engines, and ganglia clusters were reduced to a fine, glittering mist. The Wraiths plunged into the remaining swarm, their point defense lasers, thin, violet beams of coherent light, lancing out with impossible AI-assisted accuracy. Each beam was a scalpel, finding the single, vulnerable nerve cluster on each drone. They weren't just shooting, they were executing code. On the Vanguard, Dr. Thorne watched the tactical plot. The red cloud of Shredders was being erased by the blue vectors of the human fleet. It was 99% effective. "Sir," the tactical officer reported, his voice tight. "We have leakers, 0.01% of the swarm, maybe 2,000 drones. They're through the Stelnet. They've entered the atmosphere." "They're aiming for the Lilian archipelago," Alara said, her voice shaking. My people, the survivors, they're in the bunkers beneath the cradle spires." Reed's eyes were already on the dropship deployment grid. "Spectre 1, this is Vanguard Actual. You have the ball. You are weapons-free on the surface. Find the bunkers, protect the survivors. Hostiles are Krell Form Type 4 harvesters, ground-based versions of the shredders. He looked at Petrova's icon. Sergeant, this is not a peacekeeping mission, this is pest control. Sergeant Anya Petrova felt the Spectre 1 dropship buck as it hit the upper atmosphere. The air outside the cockpit was a sickening green, the lingering poison of the Krell's earlier bombardment. Copy Vanguard Actual, she said, her voice filtered through her helmet's comm. We read you, pest control. Spectre 1 is on the hunt. Her dropship, a matte black machine named Angel's Fury, broke through the clouds. The squad of 10 Marines in the back, locked into their crash couches, were silent. They were Spectres, humanity's finest. Clad in light, sensor-dampening combat hardsuits, they were trained for zero-G, high-atmosphere, and surface warfare. Each one was a walking arsenal. Look at that, her co-pilot, Jester, murmured. The city of Lilia was beautiful, even in its destruction. It was made of massive, crystal-like spires that sang as the wind passed through them, a low, mournful, planetary-scale threnody. But the city was burning. The green Krell plasma still sizzled in giant, corrosive rivers, melting the crystal. Targeting the main plaza, Petrova said. Ilara's coordinates put the bunker entrance right below the central spire. Got leakers? Jester snapped. The sky was dotted with the leakers, the shredders that had made it through. They were landing, crashing into the crystal architecture like hellish meteors. As they hit the ground, they didn't explode. They unfolded. They were nightmarish. Six-legged, the size of a ground car, covered in black, segmented chitin with spinning, blade-like mandibles where a head should be. They immediately began to harvest, chewing through the crystal, the ground, anything, with a terrifying industrial whine. They're Krell harvesters, Petrova said, her voice grim, just like the simulations. Angel's Fury landed with a jolt, its ventral ramp slamming down before the dust even settled. Go, 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 Petrova yelled, her Revenant model Gauss rifle already up. The 10 Marines fanned out. The sound was overwhelming. The shriek of the wind through the crystal spires, the hiss of the burning plasma, the high-pitched whine of the harvester's mandibles. Contacts East Flank 3, no 4 of them. Heavy, the squad's support gunner called out. The harvesters turned. They were fast. They scuttled over the rubble, their mandibles spinning up to a deafening scream. Line 'em up, Petrova ordered. The squad's Gauss rifles were not energy weapons. They were high-end kinetic platforms. They used magnetic acceleration to fire a 20 depleted uranium spike at Mach 7. The squad fired. The sound was not a bang. It was a sharp, definitive crack thump. The first harvester was hit center mass. The hypervelocity spike didn't just penetrate its armor. It hydroshocked the creature's entire internal, semi-liquid structure. The harvester exploded, erupting in a shower of black ichor and shattered chitin. Crack thump, crack thump, crack thump. The other 3 were dispatched with the same brutal mechanical efficiency. The Marines moved in pairs, a dance of overlapping fire. They were not warriors. They were exterminators. Clear, Petrova called. Ilara, get your ass up here. Ilara, clad in a bulky, human-made pressure suit, ran from the dropship, carrying a Cygnian locator beacon. She was trembling, but her eyes were fierce. This way. The entrance is sealed, but the resonance key should still work. She ran to the base of a massive, cracked crystal spire and pressed the beacon to its surface. A low, musical chord echoed from beneath the ground. A section of the plaza floor, previously invisible, began to hum and slide away, revealing a dark, spiraling staircase. They're alive, Ilara wept, her hands on her helmet. They are alive. Good, Petrova said, reloading a fresh block magazine into her rifle. Let's keep 'em that way. Jester, hold the ramp. Heavy, you're on the door. Rest of you with me. We're going to hold this hole. They took up positions as Ilara descended, calling out in her people's high, singing language. A moment later, a weak, answering song came from the darkness. Sir, Heavy said, his voice low. He was looking through his rifle's scope. I've got a lot of movement. West side. The leakers are converging. They're coming from all over the city. Petrova looked. He was right. On the ridges of the burning city, dozens, then hundreds of harvesters were appearing. They had sensed the survivors. They were coming for the bunker. Well, shit, Jester said over the comm from the dropship. That's not good. Hold your nerve, Spectre 1, Petrova said, chambering around. They want the birds, they gotta go through us. She settled her rifle on a piece of rubble. We are the wall, hold the line. Back in orbit, the Stelnet was 100% effective. The drone's swarm was gone. All shredders neutralized, Admiral, the tactical officer reported, a note of triumph in his voice. Not all, Reed said, his eyes on the ground force telemetry. He was watching Petrova's squad's life signs, 10 green dots surrounded by a rapidly growing sea of red. The harvesters on the ground, their swarming Spectre one's position. Should we send reinforcements? Jera asked. No time, Reed said. Petrova knew the risks. Admiral, the Vanguard's science officer suddenly yelled, his voice cracking with panic. That Krell flagship, the World Eater, it's moving. Impossible, Reed snapped. It's a dead husk, we cored it, we removed its engines. It's not moving with engines, sir, it's falling, Vorlag. He must have used his last bit of power to deorbit his own ship. The tactical display flashed, updating. The World Eater, a piece of bioorganic debris the size of a small moon, had altered its stable orbit. It was now on a decaying, terminal trajectory. Ilara's head snapped up from her console. Where? She demanded. The tactical officer ran the calculation. His face went white. Impact point? Oh God, impact point. Lilian Archipelago, right on top of the cradle spires, right on top of Petrova, right on top of the bunker. It was an extinction-level event. A final, spiteful fuck you from a dead overlord. Reed stared at the screen. The Vanguard was the only ship close enough to possibly intercept. But it was massive. It was a battleship, not a tugboat. Admiral, Jera whispered, we can't move that. Get me a firing solution, Reed ordered, his voice suddenly ice. Sir, Rhea, the weapons officer, asked. A solution for what? The graviton lances remove matter, they don't push it. Our conventional weapons won't even scratch it. I don't want to shoot it, Lieutenant, Reed said, his hands gripping his command chair. I want to hit it. Dr. Thorne's eyes went wide. Kalen, no, the physics of that. You can't be serious, you'll destroy the Vanguard. Helm, Reed roared, ignoring Thorne. Full power to the main engines. Get us on an intercept course with that Hulk, now. The Vanguard shuddered, its engines screaming as it pivoted and began a desperate, suicidal burn, racing to intercept a literal mountain that was falling from the sky. The TCS Vanguard was not designed for speed. It was a fortress, a command and control hub, a carrier for the graviton lances. Now it was a 2-kilometer-long battering ram, its main engines burning with such fury that the VSM hull was glowing a dull, angry red from the internal heat. Time to intercept, Reed barked. 3 minutes, Admiral, the helm officer replied, his arms rigid at his console. Time to World Eater's atmospheric entry, 3 minutes and 10 seconds. It's too close, Kalen, Dr. Thorne argued, his voice strained. Even if we hit it, the debris will still be an extinction-level event. You're just breaking one giant rock into 10,000 slightly smaller, burning rocks. He's right, sir, the science officer added, his fingers flying. The impact differential won't be enough. We can't stop it. We can only nudge it. Reed's eyes were fixed on the tactical plot. The massive red icon of the World Eater and the small blue icon of the Vanguard were converging. Ilara, Reed said, his voice quiet. The Krell, they're biological. Their ships are grown. Ilara looked up, her face a mask of confusion. Yes, their tech it's a perversion of life. They don't build, they assimilate. Assimilate, Reed repeated. He looked at Thorne. Aris, your first report, you said the Krell were a monoculture. You said you found it suspicious. You said there was no diversity, no evolution, just replication. Thorne's eyes widened, a sudden, horrifying understanding dawning. Yes, they aren't a species, they're a vector, a genetic plague. They absorb the DNA of the species they conquer and add it to their own. They're a biological gray goo. Sir, the tactical officer interrupted. We're getting a massive energy bloom from inside the World Eater. It's impossible. The ship is dead. It's not dead, Thorne whispered, his face ashen. It's gestating. Kalen, the spore they tried to fire, it wasn't a weapon, it was a seed. They were trying to reproduce. And by deorbiting, Reed finished, his voice like iron, Vorlag is ensuring that seed plants itself, in the planet, using the kinetic force of the impact as its catalyst. A new, terrifying revelation hit Ilara. That's why they were here. It wasn't just to conquer. My people, the Signians, our biology, we are compatible. Our genetic structure, our resonance, we are the final component they need. They weren't just killing us. They were fertilizing. The bridge went cold. The Krell's entire purpose in the Cygnus system was to merge their plague-like existence with the unique, stable DNA of the Cygnians, creating a new, perfected, and unstoppable form of Krell. And the World Eater was a 20-kilometer-long egg, filled with that conversion agent, about to slam into a bunker filled with the last, pure-strain Cygnian survivors. "We can't let it hit," Reed said. "It was not an order. It was a statement of fact as absolute as gravity." "We can't stop it, sir," Rhea cried out, her professionalism finally cracking. "Our lances, they compress matter. They won't vaporize it. We'd just be packing the plague into a denser, smaller box." "Then we don't use the lances," Reed said. He looked at his engine master. "Commander, I want you to divert the entire output of the primary void-slip reactor, not the engines, the reactor. I want you to channel it directly to the Vanguard's main graviton lance projectors." The commander stared. "Sir, the projectors they can't fire the reactor's output, they use it. If I do that, I'll be venting the core. I'll be turning our main weapon into a nozzle. It's not a weapon anymore, it's a thruster." "Exactly," Reed said. "The World Eater is a biological organism. The graviton lances, they manipulate the fundamental forces of nature. What happens, Dr. Thorne, if you apply the raw, focused energy of a miniature black hole to a living biological cell?" Thorne's mind raced. "You wouldn't just compress it, you'd denature it, you'd unmake it. You'd disrupt the protein chains, the DNA, you'd disintegrate it at a molecular level. It wouldn't be a kinetic push, it would be a wave of pure, fundamental cancellation." "A resonance cascade," Reed said, nodding. "A term from high command I never thought I'd see the day." "Admiral," the helm officer shouted. "1 minute to intercept. The World Eater is starting to feel atmospheric friction. It's glowing." On the ground, Sergeant Petrova and her squad were fighting for their lives. The air was filled with the crack thump of their rifles and the shriek of the harvesters. They had formed a semicircle around the bunker entrance, their backs to the dark hole from which the faint singing of the Cygnians could be heard. "Heavy on your left," Petrova yelled, firing 2 spikes into a harvester that was trying to scale a crystal shard. It burst apart. "I'm running low," Heavy roared, his heavy Gauss cannon thumping rhythmically. "These things are like goddamn ants." "Then make every shot count." Suddenly, Jester's voice crackled over the comm from the dropship. "Spectre 1, you all need to look up." Petrova glanced up. Her blood ran cold. The sky was on fire. A massive continent-sized shape, glowing red and orange, was descending, tearing the sky apart. It was so large it seemed to defy perspective. "Vanguard Actual, this is Spectre 1, Petrova yelled into her comm. "What the hell is that?" "That, Sergeant," Reed's voice replied, calm and clear over the chaos, "is your new objective, your dropship. Can it fly?" "It's intact, Admiral, but fly into that," Jester shouted. "The World Eater is shedding, Sergeant. Its outer layers are burning off, but its core, its seed core, is protected. My instruments show it's exposed. A central 20-meter wide aperture. It's a biological exhaust port. It's venting pressure." "You want me to fly into it?" Jester whispered, horrified. "No," Reed said. "I want you to fly next to it. The Vanguard is going to fire its resonance cascade. It will unmake the World Eater, but the cascade needs a catalyst, a focal point. It needs to be triggered inside the core." "Sir, I don't understand," Petrova yelled. "We are going to fire the lance. It will be a wave of pure disruption. You, Sergeant, are the detonator. We need you to fire a single, high-yield apocalypse charge torpedo from your dropship. Fire it directly into that core. The Vanguard's wave will hit the torpedo, and the resulting explosion, amplified by the cascade, will start a chain reaction that will denature the entire seed core from the inside out." A silence. Petrova looked at Jester. Jester looked at the sky. "It's a one-way trip, sir," Jester said quietly. "We know," Reed replied. "And my squad?" Petrova asked, her voice hard. "The Cygnian bunker," Reed said. "It's shielded, it's deep, it will survive the blast, but you have to hold the line until Jester can get airborne. If those harvesters get into that bunker, this is all for nothing." Petrova looked at the swarming harvesters, then at the burning sky, then at the dark hole. "You hear that, Spectre 1?" she yelled. "We're the detonator for the main event. Jester, get in the air. Heavy, give him cover. Rest of you on me. We buy him his 30 seconds. "Petrova, no," Jester yelled. "That's an order, pilot. Go. Petrova turned to her squad. "This is it, last mag, make M count for the birds." Jester slammed his fist on the console and gunned the Angel's Fury's engines. The dropship roared to life. "Admiral," Jester's voice came over the comm, shaky but resolved. "I'm airborne, I see the target. It's a long way up, I'm going in." "Vanguard is in position," Reed yelled. "Rhea, prepare to vent the core, on my mark." "Jester, this is Petrova," the sergeant said, her voice now strained, the crack of her rifle audible. "It's been an honor." "Anya, don't." "Hold the line," Petrova screamed, and her comm signal was lost in a burst of static and inhuman shrieking. "She's gone, sir," Jester said, his voice dead. "No, pilot," Reed said, his own voice raw. "She bought your shot, now take it." The Angel's Fury rocketed up, a tiny black speck against a sky of fire, aiming for the heart of the falling, monstrous World Eater. The TCS Vanguard hung in the upper atmosphere, its hull groaning, protesting the impossible physics being demanded of it. Below it, the World Eater was a falling continent, a maelstrom of plasma fire, atmospheric friction, and exposed, twitching Krell biomass. "We have a firing window," Rhea, the weapons officer, screamed, her console bleeding red alerts. "The cascade is its unstable, Admiral. The containment is failing. If we don't fire now, the reactor will breach." "Wait for the pilot," Reed commanded, his eyes locked on the tactical display. A single green icon, Angel's Fury, was climbing, fighting the superheated turbulence. Inside the dropship, Jester was fighting for his life. The cockpit was a rattletrap, alarms blaring. She's breaking up. The heat is, I can't hold her." "Stay on target, pilot." Reed's voice was a lifeline in his ear. "You are humanity's last best hope. You are the point of the spear." Jester saw it. Through the fire and smoke, the exhaust port Reed had mentioned. A 20-meter-wide, poolsing organic chasm in the heart of the World Eater. It looked like a gateway to hell. "I see it. I'm in range, arming the apocalypse charge," Jester yelled, his hand slamming onto the firing stud. "Torpedo is away. I repeat, torpedo is away." A single, silver-streaked missile launched from the Angel's Fury, disappearing into the fiery maw. "He's done it," Thorne yelled. "Now RHIA, fire everything," Reed roared. Rhea didn't hesitate. She slammed her hands onto her console. "Venting the core, cascade is away." The Vanguard did not fire a beam. It did not launch a projectile. It bellowed. From the main graviton lance projector, a wave of pure, shimmering distortion erupted. It was not light. It was not energy. It was a visible ripple in reality itself, a wave of cancellation. It moved with impossible speed, washing over the 30-kilometer distance to the World Eater in a fraction of a second. The wave hit the World Eater just as Jester's torpedo, deep inside its core, detonated. The explosion was not fire and brimstone. It was silence. The resonance cascade, amplified by the torpedo's focused, matter-disrupting blast, found its purchase. The Krell's unique plague-based DNA, the very thing that made it so resilient, was unwritten. The World Eater stopped. It didn't explode, it disintegrated. The wave of cancellation washed over it, and the massive, falling, burning, living ship was turned, molecule by molecule, into inert, fundamental particles. The protein chains collapsed. The DNA unraveled. The biological imperative was erased. The 20-kilometer-long mountain of flesh, chitin, and spite was reduced, in less than 3 seconds, to a cloud of harmless, glittering dust. A fine, gray ash that began to drift harmlessly down, spreading out over the Cygnian Ocean. The sky, previously choked with fire, was suddenly empty, silent, blue. "Angel's Fury, Jester, did he?" Dr. Thorne whispered, staring at the empty sky. The tactical display flashed. The green icon for the Angel's Fury was gone, caught in the cascade. "He did not die in vain," Reed said, his voice heavy. He stood up, his legs trembling slightly. "He died a hero." On the Vanguard's bridge, the crew was silent. They had just witnessed the impossible. The Vanguard itself was crippled, its reactor spent, its engines failing. It was drifting, a dead ship, but it was intact. "Admiral," Jera said, her voice thick with emotion. I'm getting a signal from the surface." "Put it through," Reed whispered. The comm crackled, static, the shriek of wind, and then a single gasping voice. "Vanguard Actual, this is Spectre 1. Reed gripped his chair. "Petrova, how?" "The bunker," Sergeant Petrova's voice was a ragged cough. The blast, the wave, it hit the harvesters. They just crumbled like dust. We made it inside just in time. She was quiet for a moment, then Jester. Reed closed his eyes. He completed the mission, Sergeant. He saved you all. Petrova was silent. Then her voice returned, shaking but hard. What about the birds? Ilara, Reed looked to the Signian. Ilara was at her console, tears streaming down her feathered cheeks, but she was smiling. The bunker is intact. The resonance seal held. I'm hearing them. They're singing. Petrova, they're singing for you. Petrova's comm clicked open again. This time there were no words, just the faint, haunting, and impossibly beautiful sound of thousands of Signian voices rising up from the darkness in a song of sorrow and hope and survival. On the ground, Petrova, caked in black ichor and gray krell dust, slumped against the bunker door. Her squad, her surviving squad, Heavy and 3 others, sank to their knees, their rifles clattering on the crystal. They just listened. Status, Reed said, his voice thick. Vanguard is dead in the water, sir. Main power is gone. We're on batteries, the helm officer reported. The fleet. The Ajax and Defiant are moving to tow us. The Wraiths are holding a defensive perimeter. The system is secure, Admiral. The officer looked up. We did it. It's over. Reed stared at the blue sky of Cygnus Prime. The gray ash of the World Eater was just beginning to hit the upper atmosphere, where it would remain for years, a reminder. No, Lieutenant, Kalen Reed said, his gaze distant. It's not over, it's just begun. He turned to his comms officer. Jara, open a channel to the Ashen Concordat. Jara looked at him, confused. Sir. They wanted to watch us, Dr. Thorne, Reed said, turning to his friend. Let's give them a report. He activated the comm. This is Grand Admiral Kalen Reed of the Terran Mandate 3rd Fleet, broadcasting to the Ashen Concordat. The unauthorized Krell infestation in the Cygnus system has been purged. The native sentient species, the Signians, are now under the formal protection of the Terran Mandate. He paused, letting the silence stretch. We have recorded every moment. We have the Krell's genetic code. We have proof of their plague-like nature and their intent to create a hybrid superspecies. This data will be forwarded to you. We await your strongly worded resolution. He leaned closer to the pickup. And let this be humanity's one and only warning to the Concordat, to the Krell, to anyone listening. We are not children. We are not observers. We are the Terran Mandate. We are humanity, and we will not stand by ever again while the galaxy burns. He cut the channel. The bridge was silent. Dr. Thorne stared at him, a new profound respect and fear in his eyes. My God, Kalen, Thorne said, what have you done? I just drew a line, Reed said. He looked at the view screen at the beautiful, scarred, saved planet below. And I dared them to cross it. The sons of Cygnus, one a brilliant gold, the other a pale silver blue, cast long, conflicting shadows across the Lilian Plaza. It had been 3 weeks. The gray ash of the World Eater had settled, coating the crystal spires in a fine powder, a shroud of victory. The TCS Vanguard, crippled but proud, hung in stationary orbit, a silent guardian, as Terran engineering crews and Signian singers worked side by side to repair their shattered world. Dr. Eris Thorne stood on the plaza, his boots crunching on the crystalline ash-covered ground. The air no longer smelled of ozone and burning feathers. It smelled of sea salt and a strange, melodic ozone, a scent the Signians called Ithara, or New Song. Ilara approached him. She was no longer in a pressure suit. She wore the traditional filament-thin robes of her people, her nebula-colored feathers preened and bright. She had, in the absence of a government, become the de facto voice of her people. Doctor, she sang, her voice a series of harmonious notes that Thorne's translator implant rendered as respectful greeting. Ilara, Thorne said, bowing slightly, the city, it's healing, faster than I thought possible. We do not rebuild with steel, Doctor, Ilara explained. She pointed to a group of Signians who were standing around a cracked, 100-meter-tall spire. They were singing. As they sang, their voices matching the spire's resonant frequency, the crystal flowed. The cracks sealed. The structure mended itself, pulled back together by pure, focused sound. We sing it back to health. It is our way. Singing, Thorne mused. We just used physics, resonance, frequencies. We called our weapons resonance torpedoes. Our ultimate solution was a resonance cascade. We achieved the same result, just in a different way. You are a song, Dr. Thorne. Alara said, her large black eyes unblinking. All of you. We have been studying the recordings, the Admiral, Sergeant Petrova, Pilot Jester. You are a violent, dissonant, and terrifyingly beautiful song. You are the predators who learned to protect, the killers who learned to heal. We did not know such a thing could exist. Thorn looked at the mended spire. Neither did we, Alara, neither did we. Your Admiral, Alara said, gesturing to the sky. He is in trouble. We hear the noise from the Concordat. Thorn sighed. Yes, he's been recalled. They're holding a formal inquiry, censure, possible court-martial, for violation of Concordat stability pacts, for unauthorized use of Apex-class weaponry, for willful escalation. But he saved us, Alara said, her feathers ruffling in confusion. He ended the plague. They're not angry he did it, Thorn said, his voice bitter. They're angry he did it without them. They're angry he proved in 90 seconds that their entire millennium-old doctrine of deliberation is useless. He showed them that the universe requires actors, not just observers, and they hate him for it. He looked at Alara. They are afraid. Of him. Of us, Thorn said. They thought we were children playing with toys. We just showed them that we build our toys to kill gods, and that we are willing to use them. A Spectre dropship, not the Angel's Fury, but a new one, Jester's Requiem, landed gently on the plaza. Sergeant Petrova stepped out. Her arm was in a sling, her face carried a new, permanent scar along the jawline, but she was alive. She nodded to Thorn, then walked to a small, newly erected monument near the bunker entrance. It was a simple, polished piece of Vanguard hull plating, salvaged and placed there by her own squad. On it was a single name, Pilot Jester R. Taggart, and beneath it the Spectre One Squad motto, We are the Wall. Petrova placed a single blue Signian crystal flower at its base. She stood there for a long moment, a solitary, unmovable figure. In the ready room of the TCS Vanguard, Kalen Reed finished packing his data slate. His quarters were sterile, bare. He was in his dress uniform, the silver pips of his rank seeming to mock him. A knock come. Dr. Aris Thorn entered. They're here, the Concordat delegation. They're very polite and very, very cold. Reed nodded, picking up his cover. It is their right. Kalen, this is insane, Thorn said, his voice pleading. You are going to let them crucify you for this, for saving this system. Reed turned to his friend. His face was not the face of a warmonger or a hero. It was the face of a man who had done an impossible calculation and was now simply paying the bill. Do you know what protocol Apex means, Aris? Reed asked. I assumed the Apex Predator. No, Reed said. It's from an old human text. The apex of a thing is the point of its completion. It's the protocol for a problem that has no other solution. It is the last, final, full application of humanity's will. It is not a declaration of war. It is a declaration of finality. He walked to the viewport, looking down at Cygnus Prime. The Concordat fears us because we are the only species that has looked into the abyss of self-destruction and pulled itself back. We know in our bones, in our very DNA, what it costs to fight. We know what extinction truly means because we almost did it to ourselves. The Krell. They were just a problem, a pattern of consumption. And we are a pattern of problem-solving, Thorn finished, repeating his own words from weeks ago. Exactly, Reed said. The Concordat, they have never faced a true existential threat. They are old and comfortable and slow. They believe time and debate are infinite. We are young and scarred and fast. We know that a strongly worded resolution is just what you write in the history books after the real work is done. He picked up his bag. They can censure me. They can strip me of my rank. They can put me in a cell. It doesn't matter. The Vanguard is here. The Third Fleet is here. We are not leaving. But you... I am a symbol, Aris. They need a sacrifice. They need to prove to themselves that their laws still matter. So I will be that sacrifice. Let them have their trial. Let them have their justice. It is a small price to pay. For what, Kalen? For saving a planet. Reed looked at Thorn, and for the first time, Aris saw a flicker of a smile. No, Aris, it's a small price to pay for introducing ourselves. He walked to the door. Humanity is no longer observing. The trial isn't for me, it's for them. We just gave the Ashen Concordat their first, final exam. Now we get to see if they pass. He stepped out of the room, leaving Thorn alone. Thorn looked out the viewport. On the planet below, the Signians were singing. In the plaza, Sergeant Petrova was standing shoulder to shoulder with her squad. And in the sky, the TCS Ajax and Defiant held their silent, watchful patrol. The fleet was here. The Krell were gone. The message had been sent, annihilating the enemy, yes, but also annihilating the galaxy's comfortable, deadly illusions. Humanity had entered the war zone, and the universe would, from this day forward, be forced to sing a very different song.